If you had 1 hour to sit down and have a conversation with Joanna the medium, who's also a psychic, and ask any of your deep burning questions, whether it's questions for yourself or for a family member, or perhaps something about the cosmos or the nature of reality and life itself, or maybe you wonder about aliens and UFOs. Well, these are some of the questions that we were able to ask, and we were able to get those questions from our subscribers during one of our live episodes. So make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell, because this is Shed Show Talk and it is a conversation. Welcome to Shed Show Talk. My name is Beth and Paul is on the line with us. And today I would like to introduce you to Joanna. She is a transcendental human being. She's held roles as a psychic, a medium. She hears voices and she translates that for people in order to empower them to find their identity and purpose. And today we have a lot of questions for Joanna. She's been a pleasure to speak with, and I'd like her to say hello. Joanna, are you there?
Hello, thank you so much for having me, Beth. And hello, Paul. Nice to see you.
Hi.
Okay, we have a lot of questions for you, and we do have some people who will be asking questions live on the chat below. So a quick hello to them and let them know to subscribe and make sure that their comments are there, because Paul will be checking them throughout this interview. So I'm going to start with a question, then Paul has a question, and I know discussion is going to take off from there. It's going to get transcendental, people. So my question for you is, I have a twofold question. I should clarify that. The first part is, when you're 6 years old and you asked yourself the question, God, why am I here?
That makes me want to cry. Yeah.
Yeah, that question really stood out to me when I heard you talking about that in one of your videos. Has that answer come to you today?
That answer actually came to me many, many years later, and it actually wasn't that long ago. It was probably about 10 or 15 years ago when I was first aware that I was fascinated with the human mind, and I was always drawn to people and people telling me their secrets. Now, not necessarily bad things, but just things, very personal things about them. And I've always been fascinated in an aspect of psychology. The only thing that was missing for me is that the traditional psychology, there was something missing, and I couldn't quite understand what it was. Once I became aware of the subconscious mind through hypnotherapy and training, it became very apparent to me that my work, but my passion, and therefore my work, I suppose, is truly to understand the human condition. And by understanding the human condition, having knowledge around that and helping people get through so they can truly be who they're meant to be, which is potentials.
You hear voices, and different voices from different conscious, sentient, or transcendental beings. Some you've alluded to could be alien, some could be people. Could you clarify what that's like so that people could have an understanding?
So the way I hear is not so much an audible voice like I hear you. It is an impression in my mind that is distinctly different from my own thought. It comes to me either in a male or female form, depending who I'm speaking with. So for example, if I am speaking with a loved one, generally I will get a feel whether it's a male or female, and then a voice will follow that will be distinctly different than mine, not only in the way it sounds, but also the dialect will be completely different.
Okay, and are any of those voices with you right now for this interview?
Let me check in. So what I feel around me is I have a guy that I work with right now. I call him the mundane name Dennis. He's very singular to me, but I also feel there is what would I describe you as? A field of energy, as I'm being asked to say, that is, it's not a singular energy. It's extremely difficult for me to explain.
I see over 35,000 subscribers and you do readings. So it sounds like you've been particularly active. Has it been since 2015?
With my readings or mediumship, yes, 2015, 2014, 2015, yes.
Is that consciousness that you're connecting with aware of myself and Paul And is that consciousness desiring connection, or does that consciousness only desire to connect with you?
Absolutely. And when you ask the question, I go back because I have to listen for the answer. Sometimes it's impressed on me that I know right away. Sometimes I'll speak without knowing what it is that's going to come next. But sometimes I have to listen to what is wanting to come through. The level of consciousness that we are talking about is available to all who seek it.
All right, Paul, you had a question I know was burning.
You know, I think if we're looking at this, and some people may come onto the show and they don't know what potentially a medium is and who it is that's speaking to you, and I believe that you identify these as spirit guides. And in what form do they talk to you? Is it clear voices in your heads? Are there more than one? Can you see these people? Is it as clear as me and you speaking now, I guess, is kind of my question.
So generally speaking, it comes through various forms. It comes through me hearing, it comes through me seeing, it comes through me feeling. I will also see a projection of what their life was when they were alive, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. No, so they are these are beings that were or people that were on Earth beforehand.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So
if I'm connecting with loved ones, yes. If I'm connecting with higher beings, they may have at some point and higher consciousness. That I have to go back and ask, because I'm sure some of them were an incarnate, but it's almost like they're different levels, not hierarchy per se, but it's. When I speak with a loved one, for example, who's passed, they feel very different than when I speak with a more higher evolved being. But it doesn't mean that there is hierarchy here. It's not like we say, okay, you're not as smart as this person. That's not what it means. It's just the level of their understanding is far greater than someone I may be communicating with who passed 2 years ago.
Okay, I got you. And can they see maybe things that may happen in the future? Any great events that like, are they timeless? I guess more than anything else.
So typically, when I talk about future component, it is almost always, well, actually, it's always given to me in terms of probabilities. And the reason for it is that despite of what most people think, we actually are the ones who are creating our reality every single moment. So there are certain probabilities that will be given to me based on what an individual wanted to experience in a certain life, but which probability will be chosen by them in terms of how they choose to go forward this way or that way, that is not written in stone. So they will give me probabilities. For example, they'll give me a 97% probability, and they'll give me a percentage of, less than 20%. There is always a chance that a person will take the lesser probability, but chances are they'll move towards the higher probability, if that makes sense.
This wasn't something you woke up and you decided, I'm going to be a medium. In fact, at the age of 5 years old, you were interested in ufology. It was something that your dad was watching at the TV, and you used to get right into this. And you actually worked in a college where you would help people, and somebody came up to you, one of your clients that you were helping in this college, said, why don't you do readings? And you were like, what? What do you mean, why don't I do readings? And they actually told you to then become a psychic, or they told you to go and try one of these psychic fairs. And you actually reluctantly, you called them up. It was that weekend, if I'm not mistaken. They had one table available, and you took it. And the fair was amazing. So that was kind of your first real thrust into what it is that you're doing today. And I think it took you by surprise more than was any kind of a planned journey down this road. Hey,
not only did it take me by surprise, but I don't think anybody in the right mind would wake up and say, I want to be a medium. And there's many reasons for it. Number one, the level of vulnerability that I have to expose myself through or put myself through is quite astounding, because half the time, particularly when I was doing this at the beginning, I didn't know if this was coming, that was something from someplace, or I thought, or maybe I was losing my freaking mind. I didn't know. And because I didn't have a lot of faith in myself, and I came from being a very broken person, cultivating that trust was really what I needed to work for and that took a long time. So to wake up one day and say, I want to be a medium, that's something that I don't think too many people would choose to do, to be honest.
Have you seen an alien? Have you seen a UFO?
So when I was still living in Eastern Europe, I don't remember how old I was. I might have been around the age of 7 or 8. And I remember we took a holiday somewhere in some kind of a lake area. It was away from where we lived. And I remember my dad and he used to love fishing. We would go on a lake, and it was an evening one time, and I was kind of playing in the water. And then my dad said, look, and I looked up at the sky, and there were 4 or 5 lights that formed almost like a letter V. And I remember looking at it, and I don't remember what my dad was saying, but I remember looking at it and going, okay, that's kind of interesting. And then the next thing that happened, that V took off. And I thought, so that was my very first real experience of something that I would consider being out of the ordinary. My fascination has always been about ETs, but I've never seen anything with my eyes. So that's the first thing that came up. The other thing that really stands out for me was years and years later, when I was going through a really difficult time in my personal life. One evening when I was still awake, a being appeared in my room, full on 3D being that was hovering above the ground. And I remember, I talked about this in an interview, I remember everything froze. Now, when I mean froze, not in a bad way, everything practically stopped. So whenever you hear people say time stops, that is what I experienced. And I experienced this incredible bliss that was out of this frickin' world. All I felt was bliss and this incredible love that I've never felt before in my life. I don't know how long it lasted.
Well, it's interesting you say bliss, because I was just speaking and interviewing with a mystic from the UK who describes Eden as bliss, the very nature of being as bliss. And they've called themselves the bliss hunters. And you're the second person I've heard use the term with the stillness bliss. And for me, those are new terms. And so I feel sometimes when people have gifts that they're sharing something that helps me translate to that bliss. And so one of the things we had talked about before this interview is that you want people to know who they are. And so could you, I have 2 questions about who you are. The first is there anyone in your bloodline that may have had some giftings, or somebody you feel connected with that perhaps there was something through the timelines that got carried forward? And the second part is, how do you want people to view themselves in light of your experience with the transcendental?
So just to answer your question about bloodline, to my knowledge, I am not aware of anyone in my family that has had this experience. I've asked my mom, I've asked my grandma. There is no one that I'm aware of in my immediate family that I would go, oh, okay, I got it after this person. So I'm a bit of an alien that way, which was kind of difficult in itself. I have been told one of my grandmothers had a gift, but it was something she chose not to exercise for whatever reason, ridicule, I'm sure, the biggest one. But this is not something that I knew from her. This is something that was told to me by some psychic before. So that's as far as the family tree. So what I'm being asked to say, and this is where it gets very interesting, because at half the time I don't know what the hell I'm saying. Beings are pure potentials. And you can think of pure potential as a beam of light. That is what I'm being asked to say. One of the things that I was told not that long ago is, on a mundane level, if we were to extract a human being into the minute component, the smallest one would be an atom. An atom is a source of energy. So by that very nature, we are made of pure energy.
And so you use your gift then to extract or help people to identify their energy. Am I understanding that correctly? Is that what mediumship is for you?
So mediumship, let me see, I'm going to answer this. Mediumship is really, me being a medium, I'm really a tool. And through this tool called Joanna, information flows. So that is the mediumship part. So my job, if you will, is to connect the unseen with the seen for the purpose of growth and enlightenment. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. I think we're tipping on things where sometimes words are a little difficult to utilize because there's concepts. If we communicated, for example, as light being to light being, we wouldn't be slowing it down into the bit rate that's required to process it through our consciousness and outer mouth, which is a mechanical process.
So I actually have some questions from the floor, from some of the live viewers. I'm just waiting for one to come in from Trisha, but Seven asks, what are your views on meditation and how's the best way to meditate?
Oh, I love this answer. This question. Thanks so much for asking. So one of the things that I've been asked to teach people is, number one, we so overcomplicate this whole concept of meditation. My God, the moment we hear we need to meditate, we want to run to the other direction. Meditation is nothing more than connecting with that inner voice, with that inner essence. Every single human being has this thing called intuition. Whether one believes in it or not, it's a different story. Every single one of us has this gut feel. So meditation is nothing more than tuning in to that part of us, and that requires the meditating person to slow down their thoughts or to bring them to a level where they're not being overbearing or overpowering the entire process of connecting with the inner self. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It makes perfect sense. Sorry for my delayed reaction there. It makes perfect sense to me. I have another question now from the floor. I think your name is Tyesha Richards. And she's asking more of a personal question to herself, and she says, I want to leave my job so bad, and I want to become an entrepreneur. I really want to find out which direction shall I go into. That was a pretty personal question. So she's asking you if she should leave her job and move on to other things. I'm already
scanning her, and they're showing me. This is very interesting, and I get this so often, and this is one of my biggest moments, because I always hope that this moment is going to be something that someone can take and really think about. There is no should. That doesn't exist. Our purpose is to simply create. And it is up to us to create based on what we want. So when she asks the question, should I? There is no answer, because that is up to her. The very fact that she's asking suggests that where she's at, she's no longer feeling aligned. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the next question to ask herself would be, what is it that I want to experience next?
Right, so like it's almost the answer. The answer would be from within herself. And Seven said, "What a beautiful and powerful answer, and what an amazing lady you are, and thank you." That was from the original question about meditation.
I was just going to say, I hope that helps the person who asked the question about a job. But one of my things that is really, really important for me to teach, not to teach, that's a stupid word, to evoke or to help people realize is that We are here simply to experience. Yes, we come with certain gifts, we come with certain essentials, we come with certain skills, but it is truly up to us to experience what it is that we want. So when someone asks me, what should I do? My guide always goes back and says, what do you want to do? And that's when people get scared, because then all of a sudden there is this thing called self-responsibility.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm huge on that. I'm huge on that, because it's responsibility is a big word. It's about knowing, it's about accountability. We have the choice to experience anything we want. Now, I'm not talking about jumping off the plane because we can fly. That's not what I'm talking about. But there is basically no limits other than the limits we put on ourselves. And my job is to teach that our limits are simply concepts that we have learned. And if they have been learned, they can also be unlearned.
Wow, that is so. I mean, my response would be is that you really have to follow your heart in terms of if you're just not happy there at all. I would always move on, and if you've got a great idea, then you could always start it off small. Hey, Joanna, rather than jumping straight out of what's given her stability, what may be putting food on the table for her right now, you don't have to always put all of yourself into one thing. You can put a bit of yourself into it and kind of test the water, which will probably help to see if that's going to be a successful venture or not. Do some I don't know, market testing from a non-medium answer for myself, but you say we're all intuitive, so maybe that's the spirits talking to me, who knows. But I have a question directly relating to UFOs. You've expressed an interest in the subject from being 5 years old, and what I want to know is why haven't we had that definitive moment where, you know, somebody like me has got an alien sat next to them and the audience are asking questions and that communication? Why haven't we had that contact, that absolute definitive, we're here, this is proved beyond any reasonable doubt?
One of the answers that's coming to me is that we have had plenty of factual experiences that have been supported by evidence. So that's one answer that's coming in. The other answer that's coming in is that humanity as a whole is not ready to experience a more evolved way of being. And the beings who come to our plane often come with the purpose of wanting us to, it's not wanting us, go back please. It's for the purpose of enlightenment. So for example, what he's really saying here is these beings come with a level of technology we have no concept of. And if we were to have that available, our consciousness is not ready to use that technology without killing ourselves off.
Okay, so I guess my next question is some of the technology that we're seeing that is here on Earth today, and very, very what would appear to be so futuristic, but it's in the now. Has that technology been kind of implemented on this world by them? Have they got contact with, for instance, some of our representatives, although they don't represent a lot of people, but the representatives that would be in power today, so the presidents, these multinational corporations, and maybe even Hollywood. Hollywood just releases movie after movie on aliens and UFOs and all sorts of stuff. So are they preparing us for that contact? Is that what we're seeing, or is the technology just purely developed by man without that kind of interaction?
So what I'm being shown is an image of a baby being born with a certain gift. And this image is supposed to say that there are humans coming into this world who have, in fact, a higher level of understanding that will eventually translate itself into technological finding. So there are humans that are being born who have higher consciousness or higher level of understanding, and they come with certain ability to come up with certain concepts that then translate into technological advancements. That's how it's being said to me.
Oh, wow. Great. Beth? Joanna?
It leads perfectly into my next question, because one of the things I'm conscious of is that we are certified organic. We have this fantastic body with this really cool computer that's organic called our brain, and AI is coming forward at such a rate that it seems that the predictions are that we will start to mechanize ourselves, with introductions even most recently by Elon Musk and others of having like a hardware attached to the brain and beginning to genetically alter ourselves. So one of my questions about the future of humanity as we transition from perhaps certified organic beings with a spiritual root into a human creation, what is being said about that?
That's an interesting question that I've never been asked. So let me see what comes up here. He says, what you're talking about is an experiment of a soul entering a body that is vastly different than the one you are used to.
And one of the things I've wondered about, specifically with artificial intelligence, which is its own consciousness entering into ours, are there any concerns about that? Are there any, is it simply an evolution? There seems to be some very strong opinion about it, and I was curious for your feedback on that.
Let me see what I get. So what are the things that I'm getting right away when you talk about the potential of created human versus one with consciousness? I heard the word a plague. I don't even know if that's a good word, but it feels to me, I'm just trying to see what he's showing me. I keep hearing the word experiment. I feel that this is something that we humans will experiment with, but at the end of the day, they're showing me failure, the word failure with this.
It's really interesting because I've been mulling about some ancient prophecies about human trajectory. And one of the interesting ones I stumbled upon is that the number 6 that people always revere for the Antichrist being the opposite of being divine, is actually the number of humanity. And 3 6s together means the perfection of humanity. And that through the perfection of humanity comes our ultimate destruction. And I've been stumped on this. I've heard a few professors speak about it, but it keeps driving me back to the point. I believe people who are interested in your work are deep down asking the question. I think there's an intuitive thing happening around the world where people are going, what are we creating in our own image? And is this image we're creating going to be the end of humanity? And I know it sounds quite dire, but that's the type of prediction I see in our comments that people are really interested in.
It's very interesting to me because I've never asked these questions, and sometimes I don't even know if I'll get the answers. He says humanity itself will never cease to exist. What you are referring to is a level of experimentation that the human will want to look into, but eventually realize somehow it won't serve the purpose that it needs, or it was initially intended for. The other thing that he's showing me, which is what, going back to one of the questions that we had earlier, is the word self-destruction comes in. And in order for our humanity to evolve, our level of consciousness has to evolve. If we constantly keep experimenting with machines without having the appropriate level of consciousness, eventually we get to a danger zone where we use our technology against ourselves.
We have questions from the floor. Paul, could you read out the next one?
All right, Gregory has a question. Aliens, greys or tall whites, who are more likely to be friendlier?
For some reason, I don't like the term tall whites, but I will take that because I have no other term to use it. But my attention is going to that description. I don't even know what tall whites mean.
I think
but
that is the Nordic. Like there's the Nordic.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So I think probably the Nordics Nordics there. So the Nordics would tend to be more friendly.
What I'm being shown is that on a level of consciousness, the quote unquote gray, and let's just go with that label, is not as evolved as the description that you gave me of this other kind. What he's saying to me that there's a technological advancement that is very prominent with the white figure than there is with the gray. He's also saying to me that the tall white person, as I'm being shown, is actually there's a lot of compassion. There's a compassionate component here. Whereas the gray, I hear the word is more of a pesky, is the word that's coming to mind.
One from Benny Loco here. She says that she accepts that she belongs to the universe and that she was born that way. Are we all capable of feeling the same? I think that
my guide is asking, he's showing me with emotion that I believe she's asking if we're all capable to be on the same level or feel on the same level. I believe that's what she's asking.
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So the answer is yes, because we are all one. Now that's going to throw everybody in for a loop.
I always saw it as this way, that we all kind of knew each other before, and there's lots of different planets in the universe that we chose to go in, and the reason we don't remember coming from there is because there would be no learning here if we kind of
Absolutely.
knew where we came from. So
Absolutely.
I always believe that when we passed, we kind of ascend to what we can only see as heaven. Or whatever is what people identify as heaven, but in there we can then choose where our next life is going to be, and we have some kind of a degree of control over that. But I don't identify with any religion. I think that could be the only way that I could be at peace with kind of the universal code, that ultimately everything we do here is a learning tool for where we move on, whether you be good, you're bad, or whatever, but you kind of map your own course. There's so much bad and evil in the world. Do you think that humanity will ever in the future find peace with itself, and has a lot more pain got to come before that peace is found?
One of the things that was shown to me last year is that fear is on the same trajectory as love, but it's on the other side of love. And what I was told is that fear is one of the greatest tools for learning and therefore for expansion. Because it is through fear, in whatever shape or form, we have the potential to transform the most.
Okay. So do your spirit guides ever see, like, are we going to see World War III? I mean, with all of the stuff that's going on in the world with North Korea and Russia and the US and pretty much every country out there that can throw stones, it seems to be throwing stones in one way or another. Are we going, in your opinion, are we going to see a war on the likes of World War I or II, or the great empire wars of humanity's past? It seems like we repeat history time and time again. And if we are, what will that look like?
What actually he was saying when you were talking to me, he said, you are already experiencing World War III, for everybody hates each other.
I'm going to completely accept that answer. It seems like everybody is or the vocal minority, as I like to call them, the people in power that we vote into power, seem hellbent on not just being able to do good for humanity, but to argue amongst themselves. And it's such a shame to see the human race go down that path. And I would say that if you look at it, there is already a world war. It's on a huge scale.
And this is what this is what I'm being asked to say. And this is probably one of the most important things that I will ever hope to evoke, as far as, helping people understand. Our peace in the world stems from only one place within an individual. And if each individual finds peace within him or herself, the thing as a word will not exist.
Right, right. No,
so it is up to every individual to find that peace, because when you have peace within you, the only thing you want to give is love. You have no need for fight, because you know there is enough for everyone.
I love that. I really do. I really enjoy. I enjoy the what that means, because it's true. Like, we need to start to pull together. And my thing is always try and do something once a day that somebody else would appreciate, or that everybody would appreciate. A completely selfless act. And if everybody did those one things a day, I don't know whether it's picking up some garbage that's on the street, or helping a member of your family that maybe not be as mobile, and go and do some shopping, or whatever it could be. Just one thing. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be small. It can be whatever you want it to be. And if everybody started to do that, I think it would cause a chain reaction in humanity, the likes that we haven't seen before. I have one more question for the floor before I hand you back to Beth. This one comes from Lewis Dunn. I'm starting a new job, a second job next week. I'm moving into a new apartment. Will it work out, or am I over my head? That's his question.
The image that I'm being given is balancing on logs while being on water. Do you see the image? So imagine standing on logs and balancing yourself while the logs are on water.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I do.
That's the answer. That's the answer. So that answer can be, the person can, whatever that means to them. To me, when I see that image, it is a tremendous effort.
Right. So
doesn't mean it can't be done. But it does require tremendous effort. When I do this is because I offer my vehicle to be a source of information that will potentially help. And I don't look for anything in return, because what I do is what I enjoy. So there's nothing you have to do. All you can do is, if you feel this is going to be helpful to those who will listen, and somebody will listen and say, I'm going to meditate because I'm going to find peace. And they find peace within, and then they'll tell that to their friends. Can you imagine what that can do? I want to share an experience that I had earlier this year. I was in a meditation, because I have to meditate in order to do my work. Otherwise, my brain is too busy, because I'm very logical. I'm actually overly logical, believe it or not. And I remember having this meditation. At one point, I don't know where I went, but I experienced this love coming towards me that I broke down to tears, and I went down on my knees. And I said out loud, what am I feeling? And what I heard was, this is truly who you are. And you are experiencing only 20% of that possibility, because your body is not designed to handle the rest. And if I could keep 2% of that, I would probably be literally feeling like I'm a bird.
Wow.
And what was told to me, that is our source. That's who we truly are. It's beyond my ability to be able to say it in a way that's meaningful. The only way I can say that it literally brought me down to my knees.
I don't even know how to wrap up this show. Would you ever be open to having another conversation? Could we meet again?
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
I'd love it.
Hey, Joanna. I think I'm gonna be. I'd love to stay in contact and follow your journey.
Pleasure.
You also have a YouTube channel, Joanna the Medium. I've got your website up here. and your followers are really building. Hey, I think you're about 36,000 subscribers now. Beth, I'm going to pass it over to you to close this off. Joanna, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. I hope that we can arrange again to talk maybe soon. Hopefully Beth will edit this out to hide the way that I muted my microphone once or twice in it. I apologize to all the viewers. I was just trying to stop echoes and stuff like that. But I'm going to pass you guys back to Beth. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, Joanna. It's been great having this conversation, and I'm sure that we could just go on for hours and hours. But I digress.
Thank you
and
so
I'm going
much.
to pass this back to Beth. Thanks, Joanna.
Thank you for joining the conversation with myself, Beth, and Paul, and Shed Show Talk. And we'd like to have another conversation again sometime.
I would love to. Thank you so much for having me. This has been absolutely my honor and my pleasure. And I do look forward to doing this again, because this is actually what's exciting for me.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you so much.